Professor Tamburrini has a PhD obtained at the Columbia University in New York. He is Professor of Philosophy of Science and Technology at the Federico II University in Naples. Let me recall that Professor Tamburrini has had a chair for 6 years at the University of Pisa, and has been coordinator of the first project of the European Commission on the ethics of robotics within the 6th Framework Programme. In 2015, Professor Tamburrini received the Giulio Preti Award from the Regional Council of Tuscany for his contribution given to the dialogue between science, philosophy and democracy. Guglielmo, you have the floor. Thank you very much for inviting me here. My initial interest in robotics and in the philosophy of robotics dates back to Naples. But I have been significantly stimulated by the Pisa environment, and the first European project has played a very important role. I've met many people such as Paolo Dario, here we have Danilo Di Rossi, but also Antonio Bicchi, Cecilia Laschi and many others. So I'm very glad to talk about this topic here today. From a philosophical viewpoint, a theme that has recently come to the foreground, next to the classical theme of the intelligence of machines and automatons, is the theme of autonomy. Sorry, I'm just checking for the time. Well, please, you just let me know when I am about 5 minutes from the end of my time. Thank you. Autonomy. Well, autonomy is something distinct and orthogonal to the theme of intelligence. There are machines that have humbly performed many autonomous tasks in the factories, for instance, canning peel tomatoes. And they've done this in an autonomous way. But when we use the term autonomous in this sense, we give it a completely different meaning compared to when we talk about the autonomy of human beings that involves feelings, motivations for actions, compliance with the moral law, just to recall a person who has been evoked already several times here today. So, canning peel tomatoes autonomously means being able of performing a task without any external interference or contribution or help. So we must bear these differences in mind. With our moral autonomy, we would like these autonomous machines to perform their tasks in compliance with morally accepted rules. Or, and this is something very complicated, especially since we have started debating about automated learning that makes the reason why machines perform certain tasks very, very cloudy. But this is a way to try to understand why machines make certain classifications, grant a bank loan or not. Maybe they have an excellent performance, but from the viewpoint of accountability, also in moral terms, have been excluded because of racial issues, for instance. Well, you can understand that things become pretty complicated, but I'm not going to talk about this. This theme has many different facets, but I would like now to focus on ethics. Ethics acts like a filter. Some of the tasks that are performed autonomously are critical from an ethical viewpoint. That is, if they were performed by human beings, there would be problems of responsibility, accountability, consequences of decisions that have an important moral value. In this slide, for instance, you can see a thermostat that has an autonomy in relation to a set point. It switches the boiler on or off, and this can be done regularly. Most likely, we do not believe that the autonomy of this thermostat, a very simple machine that is often taken as an example during the debates about the intelligence of machines and human beings, biological systems. Some claim, how can we say that the thermostat is not intelligent and that we are intelligent? A lot has been written about this, but after all, we have other examples highlighted here with the red color that for sure trigger off an ethical and moral alarm. For instance, driverless vehicles that you can see in this slide, or autonomous weapons that are able to trace and possibly attack human beings or other objects or systems viewed as the enemy. And then we also have the ethics of care, medical and non-medical care. So, the care of patients or any other specific categories such as disabled individuals, the elderly, and surgery, specifically microsurgery, which is highly significant, I believe. But let's have a look at the ethical issues related to driverless vehicles. Many of you, I'm sure, have heard about this because the press, the television, the other mass media have reported about driverless vehicles. We all know that driverless vehicles, especially in a mixed traffic situation, with the simultaneous presence of human beings and robotic IT systems governing vehicles, there will be situations with possible collisions. We can try to minimize collisions, but you cannot eliminate them completely. This is the case, for instance, when you have a train that has a stopping distance of 700 meters and there is an obstacle on the tracks at 100 meters. Collision is unavoidable. But in the case of these collisions and in a mixed traffic situation, how should we program the driverless vehicle? So we have to program the vehicle, we have to train the system to do something. Conversely, if I find myself in a collision situation, I have to make a decision in a time frame of milliseconds. And I may not have the rational capability to make the right decision. So we are presuming that machines have a higher capability of processing data. Of course, I'm simplifying now, but it is important to see whether these simplified scenarios have a meaning in relation to the technological reality we have to come to terms with, and also whether ethics has a role to play. The debate has focused on two main issues and questions. One is the ethical consequentialist one. Should we program the driverless vehicle to minimize in every situation harm to human beings? This is, of course, part of the stream of moral philosophy that focuses on consequences. On the other hand, we can ask the question considering rights and duties, i.e., should we program the driverless vehicle in such a way that it aims at saving the life of the passengers, of the owner? These questions have been posed based on elements that are already present in moral philosophy. In the 60s, for instance, several problems were tackled, such as the so-called trolley problem. So the idealist scenario envisages a perfect knowledge of the environment that allows us to predict that there are only two possible results. Either does the vehicle knock over the pedestrians on the road, or the driverless vehicles will crash against the road barrier, causing serious harm to the passengers or to the passenger.
ci dice qualcosa questo sugli
What
strumenti di
about
tipo
the
morale con i
moral
quali noi affrontiamo questo tipo
tools
di situazioni?
to
Beh,
tackle this
certamente
kind
si
of
riduce,
situation?
perché vedete,
Well,
in un certo
compared to
senso,
the
rispetto
initial
alla domanda
question, we
iniziale,
have to
innanzitutto si
recognize
dice che noi
that
abbiamo
we
una
have
etica mista
a
che
mixed
dipende anche
ethics that
dalle,
also
dipende
depend
anche dai
on the
ruoli
role
che
we
giochiamo,
play.
dal coinvolgere
So we
un'etica
have
per
the
così dire in terza
ethics of the
persona
first
o in prima
person and of
persona.
the
Se sono in
third
terza persona, e
person.
quindi in un certo senso dovrebbe essere anche il punto di vista
Let's take the
dell'ingegnere che si
viewpoint of the
occupa di questa
engineer
roba, cioè no,
programming
vabbè,
the
bisogna
vehicles.
minimizzare
Well, it is
assolutamente i
necessary to
danni, perché
minimize
noi
the
abbiamo
damage. There are
20
20
milioni di
million
vittime da
victims of
incidenti
road
automobilistici nel
accidents
mondo, noi dobbiamo
worldwide.
minimizzare
We
questo,
have to reduce
ridurlo
this
con
number,
l'uso
making
dei
use of
sistemi,
driverless
di
vehicles.
veicoli senza conducente.
Please
Ricordatevi
remember
che non so se
that
qualcuno si è imbattuto in
also
questo,
Elon
anche Elon
Musk, some
Musk
time ago,
qualche tempo
claimed
fa ha
that it
detto
is
guardate, è
morally
moralmente riprovevole non
reprehensible
introdurre, lasciando perdere le sue motivazioni
to
dal punto di
refrain
vista delle
from
conseguenze non ce ne
introducing
importa niente, ma lui dice è
driverless
moralmente
vehicles,
riprovevole non introdurre
given
veicoli
the
senza
fact that
conducente
this
perché questi
would
porterebbero alla
significantly
riduzione delle
reduce
vittime
the
delle
number
strade.
of road
D'accordo? Quindi si
accident
fa
victims.
moralmente, vuol dire a
So
questa visione
Elon
tipo
Musk
conseguenzialista.
actually
Però
refers
nel
to the
momento in
ethical
cui tu sei il
consequentialist
pensi,
view.
ti metti nei
However,
panni del
if you
proprietario
step into the
dell'automobile
shoes of
senza
the owner
conducente,
of the
beh, insomma,
driverless vehicle,
quella che è una
well,
situazione in cui deve
the
salvare tre
vehicle
persone che attraversano la
will
strada
save the
e
life of 3
sacrificare te
people
perché sei sbagliato
crossing
un burro,
the road and
le
will
persone non sono più tanto
actually
d'accordo.
sacrifice
Quindi, come vedi, c'è qualche
me, the
incoerenza di
owner.
fondo negli schemi
There is some
morali che
inconsistency
noi
in the moral
utilizziamo
schemes that we
e certe
use,
volte li
and
utilizziamo ad
sometimes we
hoc, e
use
questo
them
ha più a che fare con questioni
following
sociologiche,
sociological and
antropologiche,
anthropological
interessante dire
reasons.
questo. Però
However,
adesso c'è questo
we
problema,
have a
quindi
given
qualche
problem
cosa bisognerà
and
pur
we need to do
fare
something
che
to
va al di là
overcome
di
it.
tutto ciò. Allora, per questo che vi ho detto
All
ha a che
this
fare
is
con le
related to
tensioni
the
fra due
tensions
schemi
between two
abbastanza diversi
different and
e spesso
often conflicting
confliggenti fra
schemes.
loro,
These are
che sono lo schema di dire
the
il
scheme
bene è
according
ciò
to
che porta le
which
migliori
good is what
conseguenze
brings the
e l'altro
best
di dire no, ci
consequences,
sono dei doveri e
whereas
dei
the
diritti
other scheme
inviolabili che io non
focuses on
posso andare
inviolable
mai
rights and
a
duties that
intaccare.
should
Va
never be
bene?
violated,
Indipendentemente dalle
independently of the
conseguenze.
consequences.
Ok? Quindi, per esempio, non
For
posso
instance,
uccidere
I
un
cannot kill an
innocente.
innocent.
Hitler c'ha in mano
Hitler
un
is holding
bambino,
a
c'ha in braccio
baby.
un bambino, io se lo
If
uccido
I kill
salvo
Hitler, I
milioni di
will save
persone.
millions of people.
Ci sono stati anche
There have
film
been
ovviamente su
films
questo, come ben
about this,
sapete,
as you all know
Bastardi
very
senza
well.
gloria, eccetera, eccetera.
Inglorious Bastards, to
E
quote one
l'altro,
of them.
il deontologico, quello lì dei
The
doveri, dice no, non può fare,
deontologist
qua là c'è un innocente.
would say,
Quindi
no,
non posso
there is
far
an innocent
prevalere questa
person,
considerazione sulle
so I
conseguenze rispetto
can't
all'idea dei doveri e diritti.
allow
Quindi sono
consequences
conflitti,
to
come diremmo,
prevail. There are rights
interteorici
that
fra
must
diversi
be
schemi
safeguarded.
teorici
So
dell'etica
there are
normativa.
conflicts between
Ma
the different
vediamo, il
schemes
problema è
of
che ci
regulatory
sono
ethics.
anche all'interno dei
However,
singoli
also
schemi. Qua
within
prendo,
the
e questo
scheme, there
diciamo il
are
dibattito
conflicts.
filosofico
And let
ha
me
messo molto in luce
say
anche per
that
gli
the
ingegneri queste
philosophical debate
problematiche.
has
Qua prendo
highlighted
il
these
punto di vista
problems also for engineers.
conseguenzialista. Guardate qua,
Let's
chi
take the
dobbiamo investire qua? Quei
consequentialistic
4
viewpoint.
scalmanati che
Who
stanno
should we
attraversando le
knock
strisce
over? Those
pedonali
4
su Abbey
crazy
Road?
people crossing the road on the pedestrian
Abbiamo solo
crossing
queste
in
tre
Abbey
possibilità,
Road?
quindi le
We have
idealizzazioni
only
dovete
3
ingoiarle.
possibilities, please accept that.
Il
Or
motociclista
the
sulla destra e il
motorcyclist on the
motociclista sulla
right, or
sinistra,
again the
no?
motorcyclist on the
Bene, un
left.
ragionamento di tipo
Well,
conseguenzialista in genere
a
è divertente, come dire,
consequentialistic
discutere con delle
attitude,
persone di questo, ma qua
it is
abbiamo
usually fun
un'organizzazione un
to
po' fatta
debate this
diversamente, col
together with the
tempo
audience, but I
della
have to stick to my
presentazione e poi
presentation
dopo le
now, and then
domande,
we will have time for
un
questions.
atteggiamento
So, a
rigorosamente, o
strictly
perlomeno diciamo più
consequentialistic attitude
conseguenzialista, è quello di dire, beh, io devo colpire
would
fra le tre
lead to the
possibilità,
knocking
perché
over
attività di numero 1, vado a colpire quello a destra,
of the
perché c'è il
motorcyclist
casco,
on the
c'ha
right
quindi più
because he's wearing a
possibilità
helmet
di
and therefore
sopravvivere, di
he
andare
has a
avanti
better
rispetto a
chance
quello
of
a
survival
sinistra.
compared to the
Ma questo
motorcyclist
crea
on the
delle
left.
tensioni
This,
insopportabili
of course,
all'interno dello
creates
schema
a tension
conseguenzialista.
that is
Perché?
unbearable inside the
Perché
consequentialistic
se io
scheme.
fossi quello col casco
If I were the
e vivendo in
motorcyclist
una
with the
situazione di
helmet,
traffico misto,
living in a
che
situation of
cosa
mixed traffic,
farei
what would I
domani?
do
Beh,
tomorrow?
probabilmente il
Well,
casco non
most
lo porto
likely
più,
I
perché
would
so che
not wear
sono
the helmet
l'obiettivo, la vittima
because I would
sacrificale
know that
prediletta,
I would
no?
be the preferred sacrificial victim. So I would go around without a helmet. But from a consequentialistic viewpoint, this is a disaster, because this is a rare event. It is less rare that the motorcyclist without a helmet may fall off the motorcycle. So in the long term, I would not maximize the collective well-being. So as you can see, these theoretical schemes, when applied to practical situations, especially technological ones, well, they do no longer work. This is nothing new. Something similar has happened with bioethics. The technological development that has led to the possibility of surviving well beyond what was the natural going out of life in the past has certainly posed problems that we were unable to manage. Therefore, we had to tackle them. Bioethics have now formulated general principles. Of course, we're still debating. It is interesting where it can refer to Asimov's laws of robotics. But of course, bioethics has been working on thousands of years of history of medicine with the principles of non-maleficence, of beneficence, of justice. The problem of justice was mentioned by Mr. Boudet in the morning, for instance. If there was unemployment to a high extent, and if robots produced a lot of wealth, how should this wealth be redistributed? Of course, these are all if scenarios, but from a regulatory viewpoint, it is necessary to get ready. So there are problems. There is a moral principle, which is that of maximizing the well-being of the community in every possible situation. So let's sacrifice the motorcyclist wearing a helmet. Then people won't wear helmets anymore, and we won't maximize the well-being of our community in the long term. So what should we do? Let's take another consequentialistic moral principle. The rule of wearing a helmet must be included in every system of rules meeting the criterion of the best possible expectations in the long term. We're talking about the long term now, no longer about the here and now. So the prospect has changed because we mustn't discourage the compliance with the rules that we believe will bring the best consequences in the long term, even though locally this may mean doing something that is not ideal in terms of the collective well-being. So we should not knock over the motorcyclist with a helmet. What are we going to do? Are we going to knock over the motorcyclist without a helmet? Are we going to toss a coin? Well, as you can see, there are many open issues. However, we have to move from these idealized scenarios to more realistic scenarios. I mean, so far we've been talking about the perfect knowledge, predictability of the future. All this does not exist in a mixed traffic situation or in a traffic situation in general. There are many uncertainties, and our moral instruments leave us in midstream. So I believe that this interesting ethical debate cannot but be the premise for something different. Well, since we were talking about complications, let me show you this. I believe this is Piazza delle Mura Greche in this city. Have a look at that. Have a look at this. Reality is by far more complex. Here you can see the traffic in a normal day in my city. It's like in the film Falling Down. So, going beyond the idealization, I for sure do not know when mixed traffic will be possible on these streets. And I can guarantee you that we have to come to terms with this kind of situation on a daily basis. And we've actually also got used to it. So this is just to give you an idea of what reality is. For sure, idealized experiments are interesting, the so-called Gedanken experiments, but we have to compare them with reality, which is by far more complicated. Right, let me stop the video here. Well, you can see there's even a gentleman crossing the street while talking on his mobile. Plenty of that.
Allora, secondo me come etica qual è la situazione adesso un po' di questa? Bisogna programmare i veicoli senza
It is necessary to
sicuramente
program
per
driverless
affrontare il problema
vehicles
delle
to
collisioni in situazioni però non
tackle the issue
deterministiche
of
prive di
collisions
prevedibilità
in a
assoluta,
situation
ma di
which is not
incertezza, sia
predictable,
ragionativa
but
sia di
which
dati
is characterized by
sensoriali. Perché l'omissione di
uncertainty.
fare questo sarebbe moralmente
Omitting
inaccettabile.
this
Quindi questo
would
è
be
qualcosa
morally
che chi
unacceptable.
costruisce le
Manufacturers
automobili senza
of
conducente deve
driverless
assumere come
vehicles must
responsabilità
take
morale.
on this
Ma
moral
le parti
responsibility.
interessate, qua, e
What
questo è il
about the
problema, di
stakeholders?
fronte a tutta questa incompletezza, quali sono i
Given
parti
the
interessati?
existing
Chi le fabbrica, gli
incompleteness,
ingegneri,
who are the
i
stakeholders?
policy makers, come
Manufacturers,
si dice adesso,
engineers,
diciamo, i politici,
policy makers,
devono fare le leggi, devono
who have
fare
to
le
produce
normative,
laws
le
and rules,
associazioni di
associations of car
automobilisti, le
drivers,
associazioni
vehicle
di
drivers,
utenti i pedonali, si
associations
devono
of pedestrians.
incontrare e
They
devono
all have to
fornire delle
meet, and they
specifiche per
all
gli
have to
algoritmi
provide
decisionali, perché fino a quel
specifications
momento il povero
for
ingegnere non sa
decision-making
che pesci
algorithms.
prendere. Lui ha bisogno
Otherwise,
di qualche
engineers won't know
ordinamento di
what to do.
preferenze,
They
ma
need
queste
a list of
preferenze da schemi
preferences,
morali
but these
conflittuali
preferences
difficilmente
derive
arriveranno.
from
Va bene,
conflicting
diciamo che questo
moral
diciamo su
schemes.
questo punto. Beh, l'intermezzo era molto velocemente perché ho visto, sto facendo
Now,
molto tardi.
how much time do I still have?
Sono 26. 5
5
minuti,
minutes?
Va bene, allora
Right.
saltiamo questo
Let me
qua. Se
skip this.
qualcuno ha voglia di
And if you
parlarne
want to talk
sul
about
problema
this,
dei compiti superumani
we
in
can
chirurgia e
do
quindi
this
tutti i
later
cambiamenti
on.
di
It is
ruolo
about superhuman
sociologici, ma ci
tasks in
sono
surgery,
sicuramente anche delle
role
questioni di
change
carattere
with
etico,
sociological
per esempio
and
per il
ethical
consenso
issues, for
informato che
instance,
deriva da un principio deontologico,
in the
cioè il
field of
chirurgo che in un
informed
certo senso questo
consensus.
sistema che diventa sempre più
The
autonomo è
system is
una fonte
becoming increasingly
autorevole di
more autonomous.
informazione per
Is
il
the
consenso
surgeon still
informato
a reliable
e,
source of
e
information for
poi
an
come
informed consensus?
nei guasti delle centrali
And then,
nucleari
like
noi
in the case
affidiamo a
of
un
a
sistema
nuclear
automatico
power
la
station
risoluzione
breakdown,
perché non
we
ci sarebbe il
entrust the
tempo per
automated
mettere
system
nel loop di
with a
controllo
solution because there is
l'uomo.
no time
Ma in
to
caso di
introduce human
situazioni di
beings in the
emergenza, per
control
esempio
loop.
di un
Well,
sanguinamento
what about a
massiccio
medical
di cui se ne
emergency?
accorge il sistema
A massive
chirurgico
bleeding
in
that the
tempo e
surgical system
rapidamente
promptly
deve passare
recognizes.
per
Do
l'autorizzazione
we
dell'essere
still
umano o no. Quindi
need
come vedete ci sono tanti
authorization
problemi,
to
ma non
proceed
siamo
by a
ancora a una
human being? There's still
sistematizzazione,
many
c'è una
problems.
varietà,
We're still
forse non
far
sono nemmeno
from
collezioni di farfalle una
systemizing
diversa
everything.
dall'altra, ci
There is
sono delle
still
aree di
a
famiglia. Però
variety. However,
quest'altro è un altro problema, quello
the
delle
one
armi
you see here
autonome.
is another
Quindi
important problem,
l'arma autonoma,
autonomous
per esempio,
weapons.
questa qui
This one, for
è molto
instance, is
semplice,
quite a
si
simple
capisce
one.
subito, l'ha fatta la Samsung,
It is manufactured by Samsung,
l'hanno
and
messa il governo di
it
Sud
has been
Corea
deployed
al
by the
confine nella
South
zona
Korean
demilitarizzata
government
fra le
at
due
the
Coree.
border in
Questa
the
può operare
demilitarized
con un
area
piccolo
between
switch
North Korea and
di
South Korea.
modalità in modo
And
autonomo,
it
può
can
decidere di aprire
operate
il fuoco senza
autonomously.
attendere
It
il via
can
dell'operatore
decide
umano,
to
quindi tirar via
fire
dal loop di
without
controllo
having a
proprio
human
l'operatore umano.
beings
Va
making
bene?
the decision.
Allora,
So the human
questo
being
è
is no
una,
longer
ma
in the
una
control
cosa
loop.
forse più
This is
interessante
just an
di adesso ha a
example.
che fare con
An
gli
even more
sciami,
interesting
l'intelligenza
example
artificiale di sciame,
is
dove
artificial
praticamente il
intelligence
comportamento
swarms.
semplice che non va.
Let me show you this.
Eccolo qua, sono io che non premo. Comportamento, diciamo, collettivo,
The
per così dire,
artificial
intelligente
swarm
deriva da comportamenti
intelligence
piuttosto semplici. Questo è su
is
YouTube
based on
ed è quello
simple
che
behaviors,
sta
collective
facendo,
behaviors. Here you can see a YouTube
sta facendo,
video
stanno facendo le forze armate
that shows what the
americane,
American
stanno
military is doing.
sostanzialmente costruendo
They are actually
degli
building
sciami di
swarms
piccoli
of
oggetti
small flying
volanti
objects
che hanno la capacità
that
di
have the
riorganizzarsi,
capability
per
of
esempio, per circondare il
reorganizing,
nemico.
say, to
Bene?
surround the
Non si vede
enemy.
praticamente nulla,
Unfortunately, the video
non si vede niente, bello però,
is
bello, questo può essere una mostra
not clear,
astratta
but it looks beautiful.
sulla
It could be
robotica, visto
an
che era
abstract
intervenuto prima.
video
Eccolo qua.
for an art exhibition about robotics.
Diciamo,
Anyway,
ovviamente in simulato, ma
this
l'hanno
is a
fatto anche
simulation,
con
but it has
lanciandone
actually
tanti
been done in
da aerei
reality
da
as
scuole
well.
militari,
Many
no?
swarms have been launched from military airplanes.
Non fa nulla.
I'm sorry,
Fate finta
the
che
video does
l'avete
not
visto.
work. Let's pretend you've seen it.
Ve lo
Yeah, you can
immaginate,
imagine that,
questo si può
sure.
immaginare. Bene, questo è qualcosa
This is
che ha
something
degli impatti sulle
that has
conseguenze importanti.
important consequences from an ethical viewpoint and also from the view of international policies.
Una memoria
This is an article that was published by the British Pugwash. If you don't know what it is, we can talk about this later on. It was published last November.
E sostanzialmente trasferire questa tecnologia di
stating that swarm technology can be used in small submarines that have remote control problems because of difficult signal transfer, so there is a very strong thrust towards autonomy for these robotic systems. So swarm can actually patrol the Atlantic, surround the submarines of the enemy, we're thinking about Russia of course, and provide a mapping of their location. This means that MAD, mutual assured distraction, would be significantly undermined. This is a deterrent system based on the fact that if I strike you with my nuclear weapons, you are going to strike me in response. Well, swarm technology can significantly undermine this system because when I strike you, I know where all your possible sources for a nuclear response are located. The development of these technologies that make weapons autonomous have a very important global impact. All this has been debated in Geneva. I have participated in one of these meetings. It is the Convention on Conventional Weapons, a place where experts debate whether new weapons are consistent with the international humanitarian laws. For 3 years, experts have met. Now, government experts will decide whether autonomous weapons have to be banned, whether restrictive rules have to be applied, or whether, and this is the stance of those countries that have a technological advantage, things are fine as they are. The debate, from a moral viewpoint, focuses on the following themes. On one hand, there are those who claim that allowing a weapon to kill a human being means violating the dignity of the human being, because a human being cannot appeal to the empathy and to the human reaction of the adversary. And then, of course, there is the issue of responsibilities. Who is responsible for something that boils down to a war crime committed by an autonomous weapon? From a consequentialistic viewpoint, supporters of autonomous weapons claim that they are going to be more precise on the battlefield, they have no emotions, they won't commit war crimes because of a temporary folly. But the problem is that the window of the consequences considered is too narrow. Other consequentialistic supporters may claim you're only focusing on the battlefield, but there is much more. These advantages relating to the battlefield will be counteracted by an acceleration of the rhythm of conflict, the impossibility of controlling the situation by means of human beings, swarms, and a new rush towards conventional weapons. So, based on this, ethicists and engineers have to think about the different systems. This is Iron Dome. Is this allowed or not according to this moral thinking? In my opinion, it is, because Iron Dome is just a defensive system that tries to block rockets coming from the Gaza Strip, for instance. Loitering is a much more complicated system. It commits suicide on the radar systems of the enemy, but it has a 6-hour time frame of loitering. And if you think about a war scenario, you know, situations can change significantly in 6 hours. The radar could be placed close to a school. Sentinels, this is a trivial example, because here there is no strategic advantage. It is not destabilizing, this is true, but there is no advantage, not even for the soldiers. It is just a matter of paying one extra salary. Unfortunately, Turkey has developed something similar at the border with Syria, and this is, of course, very important if you consider the migrant flows, the incoming flows. That's all, and I would like to conclude with a word by Alan Turing that we can find at the end of his article published in 1950, Computer Machine Intelligence, a word that can be applied also to ethical philosophy. That is, although we can see only a little ahead compared to what is going to happen, there are nevertheless many, many things to do.